Okay. Okay.
Lamachi, are you streaming right now?
Yeah, I'm streaming it right now.
I don't see anything.
It says it's good to go.
Yeah, I
Nope.
don't either.
Okay, now.
It's live. It's live.
It's live now. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Away for Equity Telethon. Here we promote the increase. Here we promote the increase in minority representation within American innovation, closing the disparities among minority-owned businesses and non-minority-owned businesses, and furthering of equitable living. Here at Delbarton, we promote community. Through community, we grow. Through community, we uplift. Through community, we choose equity. Our mission statement is as follows for this event. Choose equity, finish the day with hunger for a better horizon through Delbarton, end the week with passion for helping the disadvantaged, win the month with support from others, conquer the year with more fight. Tonight's agenda is as follows. We will have two fantastic speakers speaking. Our first speaker is Mr. Courtney Grant. Courtney is a London-born technology leader, entrepreneur, and investor. He has a variety of perspectives, from raising over $30 million from Silicon Valley's leading investors to helping the largest financial services and insurance companies raise more than $10 billion in public debt and equity. For our second fantastic speakers will be Mr. Stephen Bienko. Mr. Stephen Bienko has proudly attended the United States Air Force Academy and Villanova University. He is a graduate of the Dartmouth College Truck School of Business, Leadership, and Strategic Impact, and he's an alumnus of the Delbarton School in New Jersey. Mr. Bienko was formerly the Senior Vice President of Sequential IT, a technology marketing company that supercharges fan engagement while producing new revenue streams for sports, music, foundational, and political verticals. So, everyone just sit back and relax. We have two extraordinary speakers, starting with Mr. Courtney Grant. Mr. Courtney Grant.
Perfect. I can hear off. So yeah, firstly, can everybody hear me okay? Just to make sure that's all good. Perfect. Yeah, firstly, I wanted to say Lamachi and Delbarton, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you all virtually. It's weird saying that out loud. The funny thing that I wanted to mention is Lamachi is actually incredibly convincing, because he actually has me talking about something, or probably my least favorite subject, which is myself. So, Lamachi, congratulations on that. Today, I'm just going to talk a little bit about my background. Hopefully, share some insights for some of the students and parents too, that hopefully will be insightful and helpful to you going forward, and also talk about, I guess, a little bit of why. What Lamachi is kind of like doing, and it's actually really quite similar to something that I'm, really passionate about in my local area of Montclair. So I'll be talking a little bit about that at the end. But let me just jump right in. So I guess I was like somewhat fortunate in a sense that the subject that I studied, that I guess I'm going to start at like college. I actually kind of like I actually enjoyed that subject. I actually found that I was actually quite good at economics. It's probably one little bit of advice that I would give, to students, is that definitely pick, or try to pick, subjects that you enjoy, because when the days you wake up being a student, you don't want to actually study. That's what's actually going to get you through, and really to kind of like get you through the day, is actually doing things that you doing a subject that you actually enjoy. So think carefully about that. I did my undergrad back in London, and then fortunately, because I did enjoy my economics third year in particular, I went on to actually like do a master's in economics and finance at the University of Bristol. It allowed me to, I guess, really like dig into some more of my interests, which at the time were like sport and media, and applying economics to some of those topics, which I guess I didn't really think about or think I would actually be doing whilst I was at college. So again, that's something to think about. Is if you're really good at something, you might actually be able to apply that to actually like other areas that you're interested in. So I was fortunate enough to do that during my master's. I guess that naturally led me to, after I completed my master's, I actually really did wonder what I was going to do next. Economics for me opened up a lot of doors because it is quite broad. It's somewhat technical from a maths perspective, but also, touches so many different like businesses that I was able to, I guess, like secure firstly an internship and then a full-time role in investment banking. There's definitely lots of pros and cons with investment banking. I was, you could say, unfortunate to start just after the last financial crisis. So I, graduated in 2009, which was a year after the last financial crisis. So that was a challenging time. But the key thing that I would say, and my key takeaways from my 7+ years in investment banking, was it really gave me a good understanding of actually like a broad aspect of finance. I also feel like I actually really understood what it was like to work hard. I'm sure all of you Delbarton students, are very, very aware of what that's like. But seeing that in the real world was, really kind of like eye-opening as to what the expectations were of you. And then lastly, I would say in terms of, I guess, like what I would view as like positives, I was rewarded well. So, I worked hard and there was a strong meritocracy, within the bank. So I was rewarded well, which was nice. In terms of, I guess, trying to be fair, when I think about some of the negatives or, of investment banking, when I say that I worked hard, that sometimes actually that does mean that it occupied all of my time, including weekends, holidays. There were times that I was, away on holiday and certain deals would happen. I would actually have to leave my holiday and actually come back to the office, which, definitely didn't sit too well at the time, but it's part of the commitment of the job. So that was definitely a negative. In terms of, I guess, like other negatives, I would probably say that I was, first investment bank I was at was Societe Generale and then Royal Bank of Canada, and they were incredibly large companies. And, being just a single person in a 10,000 plus organization, I really didn't feel like I could actually make a difference in the company because I was such like just this one person in such a large company. So that's definitely something I feel like I, learned and really took into my next or into my current role, was that I really felt like I wanted to make a difference within a company. So it's now why I work at a smaller company, that has around, 30 people. So that leads me quite nicely onto talking about, I guess, what I'm doing now and why I started to like explore other avenues outside of banking. So like I've started my own business. I invested in a couple of companies very early stage when I was in London. And I guess like through networking and navigating my way, through those experiences, I was fortunate enough to be actually asked to join the company I'm currently at, Kalo. I was asked by the board to join as like the chief financial officer as we were in the process of, I guess, like closing a $10 million funding round. And they really wanted me to join because of my expertise that I'd actually built up during my days in banking. And I was, that was just closing that sort of size deal was kind of like totally normal for me. So they really wanted me to use those expertise to help the company like through not just this stage, but other fundraising processes. So, I think the lesson I really kind of like took from that is really just to be open to opportunities. Like I really didn't think I would be a CFO when I was, at school or even at college, but the opportunity presented itself through just being, considering how I could actually like help other companies. So there's definitely ways that you all can think about, well, I might do something today, but it might not necessarily translate in something direct, but it could actually lead to something further down the line that you actually you maybe never considered, but it could actually be a really great opportunity. And that's definitely something that I've benefited from. So yeah, I guess that was 5 years ago. I'm still the CFO now, but I really feel like I have grasped a number of, topics, and actually even learned things about myself that I probably wouldn't have if I, stayed in my role in banking. So it's actually been a very enlightening and eye-opening experience for me. In addition to, I guess, like being a CFO, I actually, really like to help smaller companies, individuals, wherever I can. So actually, when Lamachi reached out to me, I was, keen to help in whatever way possible. Specifically, and some of the things that I, currently do is I'm on the board of a charity called Development as the treasurer. Actually, quite similar to Code 2040 that I know Lamachi is supporting today and the rest of this week. One of their key, who they serve is really like Black college students. Helping them to, giving them the tools to access like generational wealth, to help kickstart their futures, because in a lot of cases, they don't have anyone in their close circle who can actually give them informed advice about how to build financial security or how to start a business. And I'm really able to not just, be the treasurer, but also provide mentoring advice to some of the young, really impressionable college students who, come through the program, to learn, about, Black entrepreneurial history, to actually gain access to lifelong business mentors. It's a pretty incredible program, and very happy to be a part of it. I think maybe I'll pause there. I think, now might be a good time to maybe take questions from people, if there are any.
Okay. Thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, just you could turn on your camera and just ask away.
Quick question for you. So I know you mentioned that in your first, your time in investment banking, it was a grind. It was a lot of work. Was that like when you were just an analyst, or was that just, you were always grinding, or was it just those first couple of years where, you're kind of doing all the busy work and all that type of stuff?
No, that's a great question. So that was, I would probably say, for the entirety of my time in investment banking. So I started off as an analyst, and left the bank when I was a VP or vice president. And what I would say is it's just the type of work that changed, not really the grind that actually changed. So when I was an analyst, I'd be working on pitch decks, and essentially providing clients a lot of on-time information. That was really the key. It was such a fast-paced environment that I really had to make sure that what I was providing was both accurate and concise and to the point. So there was constantly lots and lots of things to do for all of the clients that we managed. The way that changed actually when I was an associate was I was actually spending a lot more time supporting a lot of the, the more senior members of the investment banking team. And whether that was through attending pitches or whether that was traveling to meetings, I would say I was working all the time, because it sometimes meant that I was traveling across the world on my own time. And then also having to catch up and actually do a lot of the work that I would normally do during the day, actually outside of hours. And then, when I transitioned into the vice president role, I was really trying to actually build a relationship with clients. So the way that manifested itself was that I was out building or taking clients to dinner, going for drinks, doing all of these things to really build a relationship and a rapport with these clients in order to win business going forward. So hopefully that answers your question, but yeah, it was definitely a grind the whole time. but learned so many things from it.
Got you. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I have a question. What would you say the main differences would it be between a starting up minority business versus a starting like non-minority business? Like what are the disparities between the two?
Yeah.
And how both of them eventually get started up and like get running?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, Mackenzie. Thank you. In terms of, I guess, having, been, I guess, like, one, starting my own business as a minority, and then two, being part of a business at a very early stage that was founded by a non-minority. The thing that I would definitely say is that, for me, the amount of, like, opportunities that were available, and even that I knew were available, were significantly less, partly because I didn't have anybody to speak to really like say, I'm starting this business, like what should I be thinking about? Even like what should I incorporate as? Like should I incorporate as like a C Corp? Should I incorporate as like an LLC? Like a lot of these fundamental aspects, I just didn't know. I just know that I had a good idea and I really wanted to start a business. Having spoken to my CEO, who's actually started multiple businesses, he was able to tap into a family network or, people that he knew that had actually started businesses before. And that actually gave him, I would say, a significant head start in terms of avoiding some of the pitfalls that I fell into. So initially, I set up as kind of like an individual owner. I didn't know that meant that if the business went bankrupt, all of my customers could actually come and take my money. They could actually sue me and take all my money. Whereas if you set up as a corporation, you're able to limit the amount of, I guess, like liability or the amount that people can sue you to a certain amount. So something as like basic as that, as like starting the business, that understanding, I had to learn myself, whereas someone else, like my CEO, was fortunate enough to have someone to tell him some of those things. So that's what I would say. It's actually like access and opportunity. Those are probably the two: access and opportunity to information to help you really, like start and grow the business. And it's a big reason why, I've been really keen to help out with the charity I've been working with, Development, because that's something that they really focused on as a way to, Mackenzie Charge was like bridge that gap between non-minority businesses that are started and minority businesses that are started, is to really provide that platform and that basis and fill that educational like void, to start things on a as level playing field as possible.
Thank you.
No problem.
I've got a question for one of our YouTube viewers, James Ranke. He says, what inspires you?
Big question. No, that's a really good question. The thing that I guess really inspires me every single day is, I guess, really trying to solve complicated problems. It's funny, being a CFO, there are some things that are incredibly monotonous, and those are things I find really difficult to get out of bed for. Like those are things like payroll, like month-end accounting. Like I really don't enjoy a lot of those things. But when it comes to, really solving complicated business problems, like how are we going to scale? Where are we going to grow next? Are we going to launch in a different country? Like how do we logistically figure out some of those things? That's what really inspires me personally every day. To like be the best that I can be. Is like if I can solve a really hard problem, that's what makes me feel like, I guess, like really good.
So would you say that by simply being I'm a minority, somebody's immediately like set as a disadvantage?
Some tough questions today. Thanks, Abdil. Hopefully I said that right. In terms of, sorry?
Abdiel, sorry.
Abdiel. To answer your question, if I'm honest, I would say yes. I think that's in part due to, I said, like that like information that isn't like transferred to, like individuals as early as possible. So like for me, like my parents, they both worked in just jobs and just regular jobs, and they didn't know that many people who would start, like didn't know any people that had really started business. Everybody worked for somebody else. So that, entrepreneurship, like let's say like bone in the body, like that didn't exist at all. And it wasn't something that was, tangible to me in any way possible. So I definitely feel like I was at a disadvantage as a result of that. But the thing that I was saying, the thing that I really try and do is like provide as many, or try and speak to as many young people as I can about some of the things they should just be thinking about in order to really, provide that information that honestly I didn't have. Because I think, there are so many really great ideas out there. It actually really doesn't come down to the quality of the idea why something doesn't succeed. It's actually down to the operation and how you, really implement your plan and grow the business. That's actually probably the real reason why something isn't successful. So that's what I really try and do with, honestly, any young person that I meet that's interested in entrepreneurship, just because over the past, 15 years, I've learned so many things to do with business that if I can pass on, so, Abdil, so you don't make the same mistakes that I did, like that's what, life is about. It's about learning from the mistakes as quickly as possible. So hopefully, I'm able to share those insights with people.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Mackenzie asked you a question earlier about like minority businesses sort of like getting off the ground and starting. I just wanted to like sort of expand on that. My question is that how do you think it's harder for minority businesses to become like multi-chain like companies and corporations?
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good question, Jalen. Thank you. In terms of, I guess, non-minority or minority companies really becoming this like multi-chain, I really think it really kind of boils down to a little bit what I touched on when I was answering actually Abdil's question, which was around just that knowledge that we're able to pass on. Is like I can think of so many great minority businesses that just have like one store, and it's whether it's your the Caribbean takeaway that like you all like love, or there's the barbershop that like you all go to. It's kind of like that's very like typical, I would say, for minority businesses, because there aren't that many examples out there of like minority businesses actually becoming chains. So I don't know whether it's something that is self-imposed or whether it's due to, as I said, like this lack of education or understanding of what it takes to grow to the next level, or whether it's actually access to capital, access to money. Like that could actually be the reason why something doesn't scale. I think there's not just one reason why, that happens. It's a multitude of reasons. And, hopefully, through, what, Code 2040 are doing and, what some of the charities that I work with, hopefully we're able to like bridge that gap and really help, minority businesses really take that next leap and become those like multi-chains that we all know that they can be.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thanks for the question, Jalen.
I have a question. What like generally makes minority businesses less likely to receive loans, and if they do, why do they generally receive a lesser amount of a loan than a non-minority business?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Mackenzie. In terms of, I guess, the why, yeah, no, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of a good answer. You might actually have me stumped here. I think I guess partly what it potentially boils down to is I guess I don't want to repeat myself, but a little bit what I was saying on the answer that I gave to Abdil with regard to you know, how do you potentially present the business in a way that actually is most favorable to you actually maybe receiving that loan. So a good example is lots of things that I've learned around how do I present my business to actually attract the most amount of money from venture capitalists. That's a skill that you actually have to learn. You can't just say, we're going to be the next billion-dollar company because I say so. They're really there's a formula, and there's lots of reasons and rationale and why you can say that what you say is actually going to be true. And I think it boils back down to actually maybe just the experience that potentially non-minority businesses have, but also going back to the education. It's how do you best present yourself to the system that you're going into. That's potentially why minority businesses potentially get less. It could also be for systemic reasons down to just biases within that company too. That could be a reason why as well. I don't think there's one answer. There's a multitude of reasons why that's the case, but that's potentially some of my insights. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you.
My question might be a little bit more personal. You described your journey from college to internship to becoming a VP. If there was one thing you could change, one decision you could change about when you made that whole journey, what do you think it would be? And what would you say your biggest piece of advice would be for someone trying to undergo a similar process?
Sounds good. Is it Ikenna?
It's Ikenna.
Ikenna, sorry. Thank you for the question, Ikenna. So yeah, a couple of questions in there. The first one was, I guess, biggest piece of advice, and the second one was, what would I change about my journey? Where do I start? So in terms of the one thing I would change on my journey, I think actually no, I would say the thing that I would change is probably actually maybe, and I don't know if the teachers will like this, maybe work harder at school. I really feel I kind of coasted along. When I was between the ages of 14 and 16. There were other interests that I had that maybe were outside of school that definitely took away my attention. And as a result, it meant that I actually didn't get into my first choice college. So my results definitely didn't track to where they should have been, based on what I'd done before. So I probably, even though I would say I corrected that, when I went to college, it definitely would have been a lot easier for me and maybe opened up more opportunities for me. Had I been more focused at that time. I definitely feel I was, I've been playing a little bit of catch up, for probably since the age of 18 when I didn't get into the college, my first choice college. And then biggest piece of advice, well, I guess I could say do well in school. But that's maybe that's not the best advice. The thing that I would actually say is the way that the work world is I wouldn't dismiss any of the experiences that you have had up until this point, whether that is, you had a lemonade stand when you were 10 years old. There are so many skills that you would have learned through that are highly applicable to the real world. So I would say don't dismiss any of the experience that you had. You can use all of those things to sell yourself into whatever you want to do. You just need to make the connection. So it kind of goes back to, what I was saying about when I joined as a CFO. I did not think with what I had done, I could be a CFO of a technology company. But the experiences that I had in investment banking and the requirements of the company at that time aligned perfectly well and meant that I was seemingly like the best person for the job. So that's my biggest bit of advice is like, don't dismiss any experience that you've had, whether that is personal, whether that is at business, whether that's at school. It's like you can utilize those experiences. Honestly, like as you can leverage those as much as you want. You just need to have the imagination to be able to do it.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for the question.
I have another question, this time relating to Code 2040.
Sure.
So you talk about the lack of like business knowledge and like how to, take those next steps. What would you think would be the next step to like, other than these smaller nonprofits such as the charity that you work with? How do you think we can like expand that to, more inner city schools around the country and like make it a more generalized, knowledge factor?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question, Joe. That's really good. You might have me stumped on this one. I think the biggest thing that we can all do is honestly like have the conversation, like really talk about what is going on, because that's the only way I feel like things are perfectly going to change. It's the fact that for lots and lots of years, like these conversations, people don't want to have the difficult conversations, because it's hard and it's not fun, and it leads to conflicts and challenging people's beliefs. Like those are that's the impact of everything that's been happening this year. It's really bringing out those like really hard meaty conversations that we don't want to have. So in terms of how do we make more mainstream, it's really just talk about it like as much as we can. Like I feel like I'm a broken record. I talk about the charity that I work for all the time, because people need to know that due to historical reasons, Black students, minority students, they do not have the same advantages as non-minorities when it comes to entrepreneurship, access to information, access to capital, access to money. Like a lot of these things and these conversations help to address the balance. So the more we can have of them, I think the better. Does that answer your question? I hope it does.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Grant, and everyone who asked questions.
Thank you for your questions, everybody.
This was really a great discussion, and now we're going to move on to a presentation, that will encourage like interactive discussion amongst everyone, and everyone's free to participate. So, Mr. Negrin, the screen, we could. Okay. So this activity is going to be similar to if anyone's ever played like the higher or lower game. It's similar to that. On the next slide, isn't it? So participants will be presented with a statistical percentage, responding with an answer of higher, lower, or exact. And everyone's free to give their reason why on the answer. So our first statistic is okay. 57% of employees want to see their company increase diversity. Could it be higher, lower, or exact?
All right. This is really controversial. I don't know. I think I kind of want to say lower, only because of the fact, like, with everything that's been going on, right? Everybody's been posting about Black Lives Matter, but it's kind of been more of a fad and a type of trend than it has been real. So Because all these stuff that have been going on, nothing about it is new. It's just that people haven't been talking about it until now, until somebody finally got it on recording. So I think less than 57%, they probably don't even notice what's going on. So I think it will be low.
I think it's exact because, I think that it is exact because I think that there would be a somewhat decent amount of people that would want people more diverse people within the work environment because it could make them feel somewhat uncomfortable because they could not be regularly exposed to people of other diversities.
Good answer. Anyone else before we?
Yes. Personally, I think that. Personally, I think that it might be lower just because of the nature of how some people think. Some people might think that an increase in diversity in their business might threaten their position in their job, or they might see the incoming diversity as some sort of foreign aspect that they're not necessarily accustomed to. It's not a good thing, but I think there are businesses out there in which people are generally reluctant to accept other people, or just afraid of the concept in general. So I think that number might be a little bit lower.
And the answer to that is on the next one. Exact. 57% of employers want to see their company increase diversity. So, Mackenzie, you got that right. Congratulations. Our next statistic is 48.3% of all Fortune 500 companies have women as their CEOs. Could it be higher, lower, or exact?
Question: what is a Fortune 500 company?
It's basically a company that I got you, Jalen. I got you.
You guys could be messing with me, but I think it's exact only because there's a 0.3 in there. I don't know why I would get that specific. I don't know. I'm gonna go with the exact. I don't know.
A Fortune 500 company refers to a list of 500 of the largest companies in the United States by Forbes every year, Jalen. So,
okay.
Now you know.
Thank you. I'm going to say lower.
Yeah.
Actually, not lower. Wait. It's only out of 500? Oh, nah.
The
lower.
main focus is the CEOs.
Wait, does this mean companies that were made in America, or companies that are based companies that only operate in America?
This is based in America. Forbes.
Oh, okay. So I would agree that it's lower.
Okay, and the big reveal. It's lower. 6.6% of all Fortune 500 companies have women as their CEOs. That's a big drop.
Oh my gosh.
And on to the next one. Diverse management boosts revenue by 2.6%. Could it be lower, higher, or exact?
I think it's a lot higher because when you have more diverse people in your management, you can cater to a lot different audiences and be able to relate to a lot more different consumers. I think having a more diverse management allows you to be able to appeal to different audiences, and accordingly you'll be able to boost revenue in a business at least.
Yeah, and for the same reason, because if you have a more diverse management, you can market it to a larger group of people, which would only boost revenue.
Tony?
Yeah, I was going off of both their points. I agree with that statement. I think just having a diverse management allows for such like a wide range of like critical thinking and like problem solving that like you just wouldn't get from like a same set of people. Like it just allows for like different ideas to come into place and like solve issues.
Anyone else before we reveal? And the answer is it's higher. Diverse management boosts revenue by 19%. So, the next one would be. Hold on. Okay. Men are 15% more likely to be promoted to a managerial role. Is it higher, lower, or exact? And everyone's free to participate in this.
Definitely higher.
And anyone else before or?
I'm gonna say higher because just as we see like the disparities between like minority and non-minority businesses, I feel like there's also many disparities between male and female when it comes to the workplace.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would have to say either exact or higher, but more leaning on higher because it's just there's like no it's only been somewhat of a recent thing that people are trying to promote like more equality on that aspect, and I don't think it's gone far. Like I don't think it's been long enough that like that disparity has like closed off or like has gotten smaller.
So Tony, you're saying it's higher, or
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the answer is higher. Men are 30% more likely to be promoted to a managerial role, so it's double. And the next one, our next statistic is 69% of executives believe that diversity and inclusion are the most important issues. Could it be lower, higher, or exact?
I think it's a lot lower. I think executives might like think that like the most important issues would probably be something a lot more like concerning money or like businesses that don't necessarily concern like equality or like rights with other people. So I think that they might like disregard inclusion and diversity as opposed to like certain other financial concerns.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like larger corporations, I feel like that's profits and money are way more of a concern than diversity and inclusion, sadly.
Yeah, sadly.
And especially with the fact that the employees, I believe it was, wanting to have more diversity was a lot lower than this. I think that it would be lower for the executives.
True, very true. And the big reveal is
oh wow,
exact.
That's a surprise.
69%.
That's so good.
Exactly. 69% of executives believe that diversity and inclusion are the most important issues. And our next percentage is 81.5% of people believe that male executives are better at risk assessment. Higher, lower, or exact?
What's risk assessment?
When say like comes to like a task, if it puts the company or enterprise more at risk, that's basically risk assessment.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like making the tough decisions and like major projects for companies. So like the statement's basically saying that like the assumption is that male executives are better at handling tougher decisions or are better at handling like groups of assignments than females.
I think it's lower, but I think it's still a pretty high number.
I would also assume it's lower. This might sound a little bit basic, but kind of just because of the fact that 81.5% of people aren't males. Like, I feel like that number would be a lot closer to half just based on the amount of people who are voting. But like, I also feel like that statement is kind of based on like a stereotype. So like, though it might be lower, I don't think it'd be like below 50%.
Yeah, I agree.
I also think it's lower, but I'm not going to say it's going to be too near the 50% just because of like when we look at like the business demographic, I feel like there could be a lot more men in the workplace. So I feel like that number is going to be lower, but sort of around like the 60, 70%.
Do any adults have any input on this percentage before we make the big reveal?
Most of them have been just typing their responses in the chat.
Okay, I see. So the reveal is
wow,
lower. 34% of people believe that male executives are better at risk assessment. Times have been changing. Common sense is becoming more common. So our next one is on the next slide. Around 12.3% of diverse companies are better positioned to capture new markets. Lower, higher, or exact?
I want to say higher because I feel like diverse companies are more prone to being like more progressive and generally tends to like promote like values and ideas that are a lot more modern. So I think they'd be like a lot more inclined to capturing newer markets.
I mean, throughout time, you see that when more diverse people come together, there are new ideas and new things that are formed. So I think that in the same way, it can be the same thing in the workplace, because by having a more diverse a group of people, you can not only have more ideas for the company, but then you also have more people who you'll be able to like reach out to and have a bigger audience to.
True. Anyone else before we reveal? Okay, so and the answer would be higher. Around 70% of diverse companies are better positioned to capture new markets. And as we move on to our next percentage on the next slide.
Lamonti, just a quick question for you before you move on. Why do you think that that's the case? Why do you think it's now around 70%? Do you think it is an effect of the world we live in today, or what is your personal position on this?
I think it's a direct effect because of the world we live in today. Diverse companies, they give more ground to cover, so which enables them to be better positioned to capture new markets. So yeah, I would expect the percentage to be high.
Great.
And our next is 23.4% of people think that diversity and inclusion offer a competitive advantage. Could this be lower, higher, or exact?
I think this is higher. Personally, because it makes sense that if you have more people from different backgrounds, then you would have a strategic advantage over other companies because you can cater to different ethnicities and what different ethnicities would like to see their products.
So Mackenzie, you're saying it's lower?
No,
I have a feeling it's going to be exact, but I think my personal opinion is it's going to be higher just because as you just mentioned that it's like there's so many more markets that are open and like all the different perspectives that you can get from it. So I personally think higher.
Kenna, you said you agree?
Yeah, I would agree that it's higher because of how like 80% of the business executives thought that diversity and inclusion, or sorry, not 80, like 70% of the business executives thought that diversity and inclusion was so important. I feel like the number would be a lot higher. That it like offers a competitive advantage.
Good answer, and the answer is higher. 78% of people think that diversity and inclusion offer a competitive advantage. And we'll move on to the next slide. So, Jalen, your answer, I think, corresponds with like the rationale behind that. So the next one is highly inclusive companies are more likely to hit their financial target goals by up to 40%. Higher, lower, or exact?
I think this could be exact because yeah, I think this could be exact because that's a pretty good margin from my understanding. That's a pretty good margin to by 40%. And as we've already mentioned, like the inclusivity kind of just like brings so many different ideas to the table, and it's just like an open market of ideas to like help out with certain goals or certain or different methods are introduced that might have not been introduced previously. So I think it's exact, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's higher.
Interesting. So is it higher, lower, or exact? Let's find out. It's higher. Highly inclusive companies are more likely to hit their financial target goals by up to 120%.
Wow, that is a big jump.
Mm-hmm. Inclusion drives success, in my opinion. So, the next slide. By 2020, minorities in the United States are expected to make up to 49% of the workforce. Could this be higher, lower, or exact?
I think this is higher because being that it's 2020 already, I feel like a lot of working class and lower class people tend to be minorities. So I'm going to say that it's much higher.
Yeah, I also think it would be higher. But for the fact that workforce in this example doesn't only mean in business companies and in big name things. So for that reason, I think that it could be higher.
Anyone else before we reveal? It's going to be really shocking. But...
I think it might be exact because I think I agree with Jalen when he said like most of the most minorities are like working class, and then like that might cause them to like work in that sort of scenario. But I think that just generally because of like the population disparities, it might offset the percentage.
And our next slide to reveal it. It's lower. By 2020, minorities in the United States are expected to make up to 37% of the workforce. So it's risen, but it's still a long way to go.
Wow.
And the next. 51% of all managers state being too busy as a reason to implement any kind of diversity and inclusion initiatives. Could it be higher?
Well, does it mean like as a reason they're avoiding implementing it, or as a reason as a reason, like
as a reason to focus on diversity and inclusion initiatives.
Would that include just generally hiring people for their company, or just like programs? Or
I would say like shifting focus to diversity initiatives is implemented.
I think it's lower, only because I think they would have a better excuse for that. Like I don't, I don't doubt that it's happening, but I just think that it would be lower, and also because when we were looking back at it earlier, it said that about 70% wanted the increase, and we saw how much of an increase having a diverse group of people has. So I think that it would be like lower than that.
I just feel like a company wouldn't use that like vague of an excuse to have the 51% tag. So I'm gonna say lower, but in general, I feel like it's much higher. But with that tag, I feel like it's much lower.
Yeah, the being too busy is kind of throwing me off, but I think it's like
that's a very like vague reason. Doesn't really justify anything.
Let's see if it's 51% or not. Yeah, it's lower. 41% of all managers state being too busy as a reason to implement any kind of diversity and inclusion initiatives. So I would say that number is still high.
Yeah.
But
also, that's only for the excuse of being too busy. We don't know the other excuses that are being thrown out there.
Like, you could like at least elaborate on like what you're busy on. Like just saying like I'm busy. It's like that doesn't work with my parents. You gotta elaborate.
Okay. The next on our next slide is African Americans are 2.5 less likely to receive callbacks compared to white candidates. Higher, lower, or exact?
Higher. It's like based on discrimination alone, and yeah, like I don't think only 2.5% of African Americans are discriminated against. So, yeah.
Wait, Mackenzie, can you speak up?
Okay. I think that number's higher because like based upon basic discrimination alone, I don't think that only like 2.5 of African Americans are discriminated against in the workforce. So it kind of like it has to be higher. I'd be surprised if it was exactly lower.
I think it's higher as well because white people make up around 70% of the population, meaning that African Americans are more like around 10%. So just based on that, I feel like it would have to be higher than 2.5% because the difference in population is so vast.
And this one is really shocking. So the reveal is higher. African Americans are 50% less likely to receive callbacks compared to white candidates.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
So I kind of want to go off of this this point. So we've like been seeing a lot of stats that companies say they want to increase their diversity or increase their inclusion, but we're seeing right here that like there are other statistics that like say otherwise. They say like they're not doing enough. So like I kind of want everyone that's available, like your opinions, like what does this mean? Like does this mean that like companies kind of just want to say they're a part of it? Like well, like we had people say that like BLM this year was kind of a trend, you know. Some people have like, you know, there was that popularity of saying Black Lives Matter, but now that's starting to die down. Like, do you guys think that like it goes deeper than that? Like, it goes very deep into like the corporate level where like companies can even say that just to quote unquote increase their market, which like we've seen that like is the case. You know, the diversity does bring in more profits for some of these companies. So
I think
What do you guys think?
I think that this is like a prime example of what I was saying earlier. Like, because I think that if we were to look, depending on how, well, it depends on how accurate these stats are. Because I think that if these are statistics from now's 2020 versus 2019, it would be a vast difference. Because, like we were saying, like you were just saying, it was like the trend of and seeing what was going on really opened people's eyes. So it could be that they do want to do more and then they just don't know how, like they don't know how to do it on that basic level. Or it could be the fact that they're just saying it in order to gain more popularity, and then they might gain a diversity hire every once in a while just to say that they have that quote unquote diversity, but then never really do anything to like act on it.
Interesting.
I would agree with that deal. I think that certain companies like try to, I would say like they like appeal, they like present a facade that they're, that they promote certain values just to make like their target audience think of them in a better light. Like a company might like put the pride flag or the power fist as their like logo for a certain period of time on certain social media outlets. But like the average person won't like look into their into that specific company's their rights or their workers' rights or like the statistics on who they hire and for how long. And I think like they just like take advantage of like certain people's like I think they just like put on a certain like I think they may say things but they may not exactly enact them like in a way that we would appreciate.
And just to give some more input, I think this stat particularly is like it means a lot to especially African American students in this school, and how we're at a huge disadvantage and we have to work extra harder just to stand out and prove that we deserve what we set our minds to. So any parents in the audience that want to voice their opinion?
They've been having a conversation in the chat.
Yeah, I see this notion that admittedly this is admittedly right now what we're having is some of a broad discussion. This is something that many people spend years on, like they spend their whole lives trying to figure out like these disparities, and boiling it down to statistics, as people in the chat are saying, like it is some of a I guess not a proper way to handle this, but I kind of just want to kind of express like keep these things in mind. Like this is the majority, like the main point of this event that we're having, that like there are many things in the world, especially in the business world, that like a lot of companies say they want to help out, but it could be a multitude of factors that could be holding them back, or just simply could be that statistics don't show enough. It could be societal things, societal movements, as we've seen this past year. So yeah, I do just want to point out not to solely just rely on these things. There is the outside world that we do have to accept and possibly criticize for like its flaws. That's mostly why I just want to say on that.
Thank you for bringing that up to me.
Yeah, that was a great response, Tony. And our next slide is 83% of all millennials are more likely to be actively engaged if they believe their company stimulates a diverse and inclusive culture.
I think this dives back to exactly what you're talking about. So they put on that, like you kind of said, that facade, right? And they say what they want people to hear, and then they get these numbers. So I think that because they said millennials especially, I think that it could either be exact or higher.
Yeah, I agree with that deal. I think this number is exact. Just going off of my own personal experience, like with the millennials that I know, like family members and relatives, they tend to be more, culturally aware. And if they see that, their companies are actively engaged in these like movements and things, I feel like they'd have much more cooperation with them.
That's a great answer. Any adults that would like to give some input or?
Yeah, they stick to the chat.
Oh, in the Zoom chat?
Yeah.
Okay. So that concludes our activity for today. And as you can see, it is exact. 83% of all millennials are more likely to be actively engaged if they believe their company stimulates a diverse and inclusive culture. So as we wait for Mr. Stephen Bienko, would any parent like to give their background? Mr. Negrin, is Mr. Bienko in the Zoom audience here? Yeah.
Lamachi, not yet, but I'm not a parent of a student. I am a parent.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to say how fantastic it was for everyone that's tuning in. I think many, if not all, of those percentages are kind of eye-opening, for lack of a better term, and the fact that you put the research and the time in to providing us with all those statistics. Thank you, because it makes us think about how we can better our lives and better the jobs that we do for you young men every single day. So thank you for doing that for all of us.
Yeah, this is Julie Washington. I'm Isaiah's mom who graduated last year. And I just want to say this was amazing. This was fantastic and really interactive and just really well done. But to the point of just providing some information, I mean, yeah, especially the statistic on millennials being engaged, having, overseen a staff in a university admissions office who were, the majority were millennials. That's absolutely what I saw, was that if there's, the opportunity to talk about salary and, getting it right for women and making sure it's equal, and then also having a diverse staff and representing what the university is to prospective students. Everyone's way more willing to be engaged, and it's really important. So that was spot on, and I appreciate all of the thoughts and input that went in behind the scenes to get this all together. So great job.
Thank you.
This is Marjorie Lamachi, Christian's mom. I think you guys have done a fantastic job in this. And I think a lot of the discussion is very, very helpful. Coming from a corporate America environment, I can say that I have seen companies try to instill D&I programs well. And then there are those who may not necessarily know all the steps that need to be taken. So D&I, you have to start with whatever your recruiting process is, ensuring that not only are you looking for a diverse pool, but you also have a diverse panel that's actually interviewing, so that it doesn't end up that the individuals that you find are not the ones being allowed in, because there have been studies that say people naturally end up hiring people who look more like them or that they feel more comfortable with. Then once you've brought them in, what do you do in order to keep them there? And that includes, sort of creating affinity groups within the organization that allows you to sort of, similar to DAP, right, which allows you to have some place which you consider a space safe and that addresses issues that are unique to you. It's also ensuring that there's equal access and equity as well. So I will tell you that as my company looked at potentially laying people off, one of the things that they were concerned about was ensuring that they did not lay off one racial group more than another. Mm-hmm. But do all companies do that? Don't know. So everything requires, really instilling a thoughtful D&I program within a company takes a lot of thought and takes a lot of work. Just another example is that you have to go into your compensation and make sure that there's no disparity in compensation. So, like I said, some companies do it well. Some companies are not really sure what to do or how to do it. And as such, it has a different effect depending on, exactly what actions a company may take.
Mm. That's a great response.
So, yeah, I think that's like a great example to what we were mentioning previously on how like there are a lot of factors that go into this. Obviously, especially for companies that like these are people's lives that companies are controlling. There's a lot of things these companies have to take account. Like in the chat, we see people bringing this up. We do have to acknowledge that point. That there are a lot of factors that companies take into play, and it's more of a question of do they do it effectively or not, and that's kind of where I'll leave it.
I just want to share something. This is Shreni. I'm Shreya's mom. I just want to share two to three quick points. I was doing a lot of diversity work with women not being promoted in medicine. So what we had to do is we had to find the studies where when all variables were accounted for, we found that nurses trusted male doctors more than they trusted female doctors, and they questioned female doctors more than they questioned male doctors. So this was a culture amongst nursing. That was something we had to research by observing and watching. We noticed that when all variables are accounted for, even though 50% of the medical school class is female, by the time you get up to the subspecialties, women don't get promoted. But the one thing that I uncovered in all this was, yes, there was a lack of initiative in promoting women, but the profound thing I also found was that women do not speak up for themselves, and they don't stand up for themselves, and they don't negotiate for themselves. So let me give you an example. When a man is applying for a job, and there are 10 criteria that the man needs for the job, he will apply typically with 7. When a woman applies for that same job, she will want to have 12. So she will have this need to either get over the imposter syndrome or the feeling of failure, and she will need to be perfect. She will need to get to 12 before she applies. The man has the self-confidence or the social capital or the feedback that he can do it. We trust him. He can go in there with 7 out of 10 and he'll apply for it. Before I started doing this work, I found my female colleagues would not be going out for promotions, would not be putting their hat in the ring, would not be asking for higher levels of salary. We were just grateful for what we got. And after we started this work, I had a friend come up to me and say, it was after your talk that I went ahead when I went for this new job and I negotiated what I actually wanted to get paid, what I actually wanted to do. And if we didn't know, that was our own blind spot. In other words, some of us hold ourselves back and some of us are held back. And it's a combination, it's a dance between your own self-confidence, knowing your own market value and knowing what you're worth and going for it. And the other part of the dance is the partner with you. Is there racism? Is there sexism? Do they trust you? Do they have an implicit bias against you? But it's not all in one area. It is a mutual, there's a couple of factors that play into this. And it's very important to know what's going on inside yourself as well as what's going on outside.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. That was really, really nice. So as we transition, our speaker, Mr. Stephen Bienko, is here. Mr. Stephen Bienko, proudly, as stated before, for those just coming in, attended the U.S. Air Force Academy and Villanova University. He is a graduate of the Dartmouth College Tuck School of Business Leadership and Strategic Impact Program, and as some of you know, an alumnus of Delbarton School. He was formerly the Senior Vice President president of Sequential IT, a technology marketing company that supercharges fan engagement. And before Sequential IT, Stephen Bienko was the director of marketing of Kennedy Funding. So, Mr. Bienko, take it away.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for having me on today. Sorry it took me a little bit of time. I was out coaching some future young Delbarton boys on the football field over in East Orange. So we've got a great little squad out there and working some young minds, both physically and mentally, and trying to, continue to expand upon, bringing great people to Delbarton as well. So sort of double dipping there, coaching, and also working hard to find some great young men that can be a part of Delbarton and who want to be. So I appreciate you guys having me on today. And like was said, my name is Stephen Bienko. For any of you who have not met, it's great to see Julie and Treni on the call right now. Hello to both of you. I graduated in 1994 from Delbarton. And I'm going to give a little quick background of myself and my time at Delbarton, and then get into a couple minutes of some business conversations and what I've seen in the market and what some of my thoughts are. So I graduated Delbarton in 1994, and at that time, Delbarton, I know, just to give Delbarton a nice kudo, I was one of 4 in the entire school of color at Delbarton at that particular time. And so it was a different era. And I had a great experience at Delbarton. It gave me tremendous blessings across various areas of my growth as a young man. And it really helped me become the person that I am today, which I'm very proud of and happy about. So I've seen a lot go on at Delbarton and a lot of its growth. So really excited about the position that it's in today. I think its time is right now for its growth. And thank you all for being a part of its quest for diversity at the school. I've been an entrepreneur. I know, some things were mentioned about my history. I've been an entrepreneur pretty much from the very beginning. And so I've looked at the equity in the business world a little bit differently than someone maybe who has gone through the corporate area, which has its side of challenges in the business community. But I've always been involved in entrepreneurism. And one of my first areas that I would love to mention is, so you can collect where my thoughts come from, my first actual job was in the New Jersey State Police. And during the time, you all, the young ones on here don't remember, but some of the parents who are on here, I got on during the Turnpike shootings and the racial unrest in the state of New Jersey due to the Turnpike shootings. I came on when the consent decree was moving through the governor's desk. And so it was a very challenging time racially within the state police. So I saw a lot of what went on there and a lot of its challenges. One of the first challenges I saw was that there was nobody helping or assisting those of color to truly understand, this is one of the challenges across the business world as well, how to advance within a community like that. And where I saw my counterparts easily move through the system with grace. No matter what happened, no matter what kind of demerits they received, no matter what trouble they had on the road previously, I knew that I had to watch every move I made. And it was always a concern of moving up the ladder in the state police, and it's one of the reasons why I exited, was that I had a clear picture that my growth within the organization had could completely be stripped by one individual. And there wasn't one individual that I was looking at, but I came to the understanding that one individual could completely derail me off the path that I was looking to be on. And that path was my intentions was to be the superintendent of the state police. That's why I went in. That was the goal. And that's what I was wanting to achieve. Then I learned really quick that one individual could completely derail me. And I looked at some of my counterparts who were actually being uplifted even for when they did things wrong. And that really woke me to the challenges that are out there in the business world. And I'll equate even the state police to the business world. I went into my entrepreneurial field, and immediately I found an interest in media and marketing, and which is what I'm in now. I'm in social media marketing. And the quest has been, as I started learning the world of marketing and how it operated and what the voice of marketing and now digital marketing, what the voice that it has, I learned that, wow, marketing actually controls how we think and how we see things. And I looked at the minority community, whether it's women, people of color, have absolutely a lack of hands involved in media and marketing, where we have a tremendous amount of hands involved in entertainment media. I don't want anybody to think about that. Entertainment media is a little bit different. And it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's entertaining. But we don't have a hand in marketing-based media, how companies are relaying their message out to the public. It is an area that I found that has been such deprived in the messaging. And it has hurt businesses because businesses are left without a diverse population of buyers because the way that their businesses are being marketed is not through the eyes of all of their customers. And I found tremendous disparity within the world of media. And as I got deeper into the social media world, I saw it even more. Because what it did is it started attaching me to some of the Silicon Valley growth of digital applications. And one of the toughest, and sometimes you see, if you look at what happens in Silicon Valley with the launching of startup companies, it's slim pickings of people of color. And the reason being is that in order to launch one of those companies, you need funding. And people fund people they know and people they like. And if you don't have people that know you or like you or just generally respect you or have that vision of, oh, I think that individual is going to be successful, I like certain things about him. And a lot of times it's like because he, and I use that word he strongly, he looks like me. And I recognize in the social media world that there's a complete lack of Black and brown equity within that market. And that is the new market of marketing. That is the new segue to how we're delivering messaging. And if we're not in an area of strength within the digital space of marketing, we are again at a disadvantage because our messaging, a level playing field of messaging, is not being relayed. One of the things I talked to some of my team members about consistently, I just talked about it on our team call today, because we worked really, really hard at having a very, very diverse team. We have 33 people right now, very diverse. We're predominantly, we're 88% female, a high level of diversity, brown, Black, gay, lesbian, transsexual. We have a diverse population of people who are part of our team. And we're really happy and excited about that because it allows us to understand also a diverse population of people and have our clients also understand a diverse population when it comes to people who are buying their product. And I've talked about today regarding the voice and how we have an opportunity as an organization to help streamline the messaging that organizations and companies are making. And if you think about that, in the world of marketing, as a big organization, a big company goes to a marketing agency and says, hey, here's our product. Here's our product. Please get back to us with a variety of pitch options of how we're going to sell that product. Well, for many, 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 many years, if you think about Fifth Avenue, New York City, the head of the advertising and marketing world, they're predominantly all white male companies. And that's where your messaging is coming from. That's where the messaging of products, organizations, nonprofits, that's where the messaging is coming from. And with so much disparity in that, there's a lack of opportunity even for new media operations to kind of get in and get those accounts so that they can assist in how do we market a variety of communities? How do we make sure that this message is being brought across so that a diverse population can understand the messaging properly, so that people are not offended by messaging, so different demographics are not excluded from understanding what products, what options are out there. So they're not excluded to understand what schools are out there. That's part of marketing as well. Identifying what schools should I be looking at for college if you're not part of a Delbarton type of school. Well, when the marketing of that university is all geared towards certain populations, then how are you understanding exactly that that school could be great for me? But the marketing is just off. And they're maybe attempting to have a great environment for a diverse population, but the marketing is way off. And you can't even have an opportunity to identify with that market. So one of the areas that I know in the digital community, there's a lot of room for improvement on the technology side, so much room for improvement. But I really think that, yes, there's so much room to be made there and gain there, but we're really missing the beat and losing a lot of momentum when it comes to media and how media is relayed to the populations, how people are portrayed, how ads are portrayed. Just now, because of George Floyd and what things that happened this summer. Just now, are you seeing interracial couples really be involved in marketing? Now I look at it and say, well, now how long is that going to last? How long is that really going to last? When the controlling parties, the big marketing agencies, are only doing it in order to fill a void right now. And I find that's another area that we really need to continue pressing on about, is how do we create more opportunities in the world of media marketing, advertising, where minority-based organizations have a clear opportunity so that messaging is heard properly, so that a more diverse population has an opportunity to create the messaging that's needed, or that's requested, or a higher level of influence. And then more opportunities for younger individuals coming out of school to find opportunities within these organizations, and then to see the fact that they can themselves begin and start their own media agency. Most media agencies were started from scratch. Were started from very humble beginnings, but they have historically found their way because they were not a minority-based population of people. And so I find that there are two areas that we are really lacking right now that we have to continue finding some strong equity, and that's, that is in the technology-based market for our technical needs, especially our communicative applications. If you see how, it's not often that you hear about the celebrity nature of a Hispanic, Black, female, Middle Eastern, Asian founder of a very cool startup technology company. You rarely hear about it. Rarely. They're not highlighted like some of our other, very interesting startup companies. Maybe the company does well, but here's where I find the gap. That it's not always about the money they've been able to raise or their end of the day evaluation of their company. But what we don't hear about is for young people to look up and say, oh, wait a minute, so you mean that company is founded by a Black female? That company was founded by a Middle Eastern immigrant male whose parents came here 10 years ago? And that individual founded that company? And they raised, $15, $20 million. We don't hear about it in that high-level celebrity nature, which sometimes is important, and it goes back to the media market world. It becomes important to validate to others that, hey, that can be me as well, or to validate to others who may be interested in investing in those types of markets to realize that, hey, you know what? I need to go invest into that as well. And when I'm pitched this particular application or piece of technology, and I look up and I see a diverse individual in front of me and I'm an investor, that I'm looking at the product more and not just the person. And that's one of the areas that we continue to struggle with in those markets of marketing and digital technology and fundraising, is that we're many times passed over and passed up because of that. And we also we don't see some of the great successes that have come before when it comes to startup companies and those who have done well in the technology field and raising money. But I wanted to kind of just give a little bit of my thoughts and opinion regarding the media and the marketing world, and how I find this is a tremendous opportunity to change the conversation of how messaging is being relayed. And I know that it's a quest of mine personally, that we all find a little area that we can do our service, and that is an area that I am working tirelessly hard to get ahead of and find great individuals to be part of the organization that I've been able to put together, so that we can take a little more control of how messaging is being relayed, to create more of an even playing field of diverse-based marketing. And it's not just to be one-sided, it's to keep it even, it's to keep it equitable between all people, so that we can find new innovative ways to continue to grow. So I'd love to, I know I scattered a little bit back and forth there, but I know we only had about 10, 15 minutes. I wanted to get a couple points across just to kind of stir some things up and create maybe some questions or some dialogue. And if anybody has any questions regarding that, or my thoughts on it, or your thoughts, please, we can open it up now.
I have a quick question. I believe in free markets and I believe in private companies. And how do we balance that out with wanting to change culture and change behavior, but still keeping, people who have private companies sort of in charge of their own private companies?
So I think one of the things that changed in the mindset is that not all roads have to lead to big corporations, if that makes sense. That you can, create for young people coming out of schools to find some strong equity in working for privately owned companies, and to find a lot of value in that and change the narrative of that person. A lot of it is psychological, right? Where some of our universities have consistently, preached and talked about, the big companies, and the big companies are also always around. They're always showing their face, and because they have the ability to do so. And it becomes that psychological value that, hey, I've got to go work for that big company, and that's where I'm going to feel good about myself, and that's what's going to, showcase, my value. We need to continue to find value in doing good for ourselves, and not just for the benefit of a large corporation, and how we can find a lot of value in privately owned companies. And I think that as people of color, that's an opportunity for us to continue uplifting areas that we need to uplift, and getting some of our best talent in some of those spaces. I was watching, this makes me think about something real quick. I was watching, I don't know if anybody, if any of you all like it. I find the show absolutely hilarious and very well written. Black AF. I don't know if anybody you've seen that. I find it to be highly well written and well done and hilarious. So there's an episode with Tyler Perry on there, and remember that episode. He goes over to Tyler Perry and he starts talking about, how he wants to, about his filmmaking and his writing and who he needs to angle the writing for. And Tyler Perry just gets right in his face and says, I write for my people, and that's it. That's all I care about, is writing for my people. I tell their stories. I tell them how they want to hear them. And I don't care what anybody else thinks. I don't care if I get a Grammy or an Emmy. That doesn't matter to me. That's not giving me my value, my self-worth. I want to create things for my people. And I've made millions and millions and millions of dollars creating things for my people that give them joy, happiness, and motivation, and create laughter to them. And that sort of stuck to me a lot, where, we need to help grow. We need to help continue to incentivize and to support our most intelligent minds and our brightest futures to say, hey, let me go work with this organization. Let me go help this company. Let me put my time and energy in here and trust that process a little bit more, and feel, we don't have to feel that we have to go work for some of these massive organizations to feel our value and our worth. That we can find greatness in some privately owned companies that are doing really great things and are making great money, and where you can have a wonderful life. So I think we need to help change that narrative of what's valued and what's not valued, if that makes any sense.
I have a question. What are some ways that the disparities within minority representation within media and like actual business can be closed? Because earlier you spoke about how for example Black people were mainly represented in like entertainment media, but not in other areas. So like, what are some ways that that disparity could be closed?
Number one is that we have to start creating our own marketing and advertising agencies, point blank. I mean, that's something that has to be supported, communicated about. I mean, we have to talk to some of our key professors who are in, some of our top, some of our top universities who are teaching advertising and marketing, and there are great ones in there of color that are teaching advertising and marketing to communicate more about building our own entrepreneurial ventures when it comes to media and marketing. And in today's society, that dial can move quickly. That dial can move, because the platforms, if there's any time for this level of equity to rise up when it comes to media, it really is in this generation, because there are so many open door organic platforms that can be used, that voices can be heard, and media can be relayed. You're not confined to just your general, let's say, newspapers and cable TV, and where things are massively controlled. We have opportunities now to create our own media outlets. And I'm not saying just talk to ourselves. I'm not saying that by any stretch of imagination. I'm not of that mindset, but so that there's equality in that system where we can create our own cultural organizations that supports a continued diverse population of people, but also allows for companies and individuals to see and hear the voice of people of color. And I think, we have to start creating our own media companies, our own social agencies, our own digital platforms, our own advertising agencies, so that those dollars are controlled. Like I was just talking to one of my colleagues yesterday, and we're working on a project together, and I'm not involved in this particular project, but he was telling me about one of his newest clients, and that client, and this is not a major corporation, right? They're a mid-level corporation. Their monthly digital advertising budget is $750,000 a month, okay? And that's their monthly digital, and I mean social, not even talking SEO, social media advertising budget, okay? So if you think about that, I mentioned the dollars in that is because what happens in that world is that you are now placed in trust of that to spend in order to get a return for that business. But it's in your control of where and how you're advertising. So you're creating the ads, you're setting up the strategy, you're developing your demographic plan. You are in control of that. So the company cares about the bottom line that's paying for the advertising. They want sales. They want a return on their advertising dollars. But now, as a media agency, you have control of those dollars and where they're being spent and who they're angled to and how. What type of content's being relayed to them? What type of imagery? What type of videos? What type of messaging? That's all controlled by agents. That was my hello wake-up call. Like, wow, are you serious? So that's where that script is able to start getting flipped a bit. That if we can place more opportunities in building media agencies in massive marketing and not just in our generic areas of quest and entertainment. The putting some of our brilliant minds who do an amazing job in those worlds, because we're being entertained like crazy. And we've seen some amazing stuff. Well, let's put some of those brilliant minds who know how to brand and market and create media, and let's put it more towards mainstream. Everyday bit. Let's put it towards pharmaceutical companies. Let's put it towards gas and energy companies so that we're helping to control their marketing dollars as well and creating a stronger voice.
Thank you.
You talked briefly about young people and starting to get them more involved in the market. What do you think about social media? I mean, companies that are basically social media based, and do you think that they're insufficient as far as how extensive their resources are, or that they're intuitive and flexible because they're only based on social media markets?
Explain that question a little bit more. I don't think I quite understood it. If you can kind of maybe rephrase that for me. It's probably me. I got hit in the head a couple times by some of these 9-year-olds playing football, so I may have not heard it correctly. So just repeat the question again.
So for young people that are just leaving school, may not have as much sort of experience in the business world, what do you think about companies that are primarily social media based?
So here's one of my quests going right now, is that you all have grown up with these things. You don't know any difference. You don't know any difference than understanding a digital form of communication and digital marketing, digital advertising, and digital content. You don't know any different. You know how to use social media, social marketing naturally. It's intuitive because you are actually dictating. Here's power to you all. You are actually dictating how new media applications on the social peripheral are actually being built and why. The way you want to communicate, the way you're thinking about communication is actually the way that new products are coming out. It's because you're telling that this is how we're communicating. And so there needs to be an application built around this. You actually have the power of creating how that's going on. And in our agency that we have, 42 Growth, one of the things that I've always pushed is that we bring on the youngest of the youngest. And the reason being is this, is that you do this intuitively. I don't. I run an agency and I don't do social media intuitively. It's not, your age, I did not grow up that way. I grew up with just face-to-face communication, and that's what I knew. My phone hung on the wall with a string, with a cord on the bottom of it, right? And that was the only way I was communicating with anybody. Anybody wanted to call, they had to say, "Hi, Mr. Bienko, can I speak to Stephen, please?" "Sure." And he'd yell down for me, right? That was the way that we communicated when I was in high school, okay? I remember hiding my phone underneath my pillows so I could talk to my friends. And at that point, maybe senior year, we had a cordless phone. Okay, so that was easy. But you guys, this is the way you live. So what we do is that we bring young people on to our organization because I need to know how you're thinking. And I need to know what content is important to you. And how do you see this way of communicating? Because the way that we grew up communicating is not how you communicate. And I stopped short of playing that old man role of, well, that's not how we used to communicate, so you should not communicate that way. Nonsense. That's how you communicate. Guess what? Now I have to catch up to how you're communicating. I can't say how you're communicating is wrong. I can't. It may be different than the way I communicate or I was taught to communicate or send messaging out, but it is the way that you are communicating. So my demographic needs to make the adjustment, especially if we're in the creative advertising, marketing, media world. I need to make the adjustment. So I want to bring on young people who are showing us how this communication is happening. Because if we're branding for companies, then we need to be branding for your age. Because a company that we're working with, they're already doing okay with the current demographic they already have. If they want to succeed for longer periods of time, they need to learn how to start communicating with you. They need to learn how to start messaging, getting you to think about, hey, yeah, you know what, when I'm a little older, I think I'd like to, do I want to drive a Ford, a Mercedes, a BMW, or a Lexus? I don't know. But guess what? They need to start influencing you now. So they need to start showing up and showing value to you, to start letting you think like, hey, emotionally, hey, that's the place I'd like to go vacation at. Because guess what? Where I wanted to go vacation back when I was your age is completely different from where you want to go. And it's where you think you want to go right now is probably going to dictate that where a certain area of the country is going to do well. Because what's being implanted in your mind that what's cool right now, and so when you have the money to go buy your own vacation, that's where you're going to go. That's where you're going to go, is where you're dreaming of going right now. So if in your world and your influencers and the people who are marketing to you, and that's what influencers are, guys, they're just marketers. So if those influencers are talking about, hey man, the hot spot to go is Tahiti and Tahiti. Everybody's talking about Tahiti. Well, guess what? When you're 25, that's where you're going to go when you get your first couple dollars in your pocket. You're like, you know what? I got some money in the bank. I want to go on a nice vacation with my buddies. You're going to go to Tahiti. That's going to be the first place you think about because that's what was influential in your mind when you were 15, 16 years old. Okay? So I want to bring on young, innovative minds. But the area that you spoke of, Jalen, was that it's our job to teach you business and how businesses operate and how they communicate, how their processes are, what they're looking for, what type of returns they need, how they're angling their budgets. That's our job to teach that. And then we need to listen to you as to how to communicate the message. And so a way that I want to continue building younger people to service the media market is continually bringing them on at a very, very early age. It's kind of like going back. We've sort of separated from how successful and how great young people can be. And we sort of stunt your growth a little bit because we feel like, oh no, you need more time to do this. Oh, you're not old enough to do that yet. Take that responsibility on. I believe in the opposite. I believe that you may need to teach a little more, but young minds are able to take on a lot more than what we think. Because if we look way, way back, our presidents were in their 20s. Our leaders were in their early age. The presidents of companies were in their 20s. Our political leaders were in their late 20s, early 30s. When they were leading our country. You say that young person can't take on that? 18-year-olds were running households, taking care of families. Okay, there's a lot that you can take on at a young age, a lot. If you're sort of put into the fire, and that's something that I feel is very important, very valuable, to put young people into a fire. And I think that's an area when it comes to especially, diversity as well is getting diverse populations of people and then putting them into the fire to say, guess what? All the things you thought about that you couldn't do, guess what? I'm going to prove that you can right now, right here. And at the same time, we're going to prove to a client that, guess what? Change your way of thinking. Because guess who, that marketing plan that you love so much? Let me introduce you to the young woman that created that plan. Oh yeah, she's a 21-year-old black woman. She built your marketing plan that you love so much. She built your strategy that's working so well for your business. Jalen, I hope that gave you a little bit of answer there.
Oh yeah, that was very, very intuitive. Thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking today. I just had a question that's a little bit more personal.
Yeah.
So you seem like to be really passionate about what you're talking about. So I just wanted to know, is there like a specific moment that gave this new outlook that marketing controlled our thinking?
It's an awesome question, man. It was, I think it was the first national client that we brought, a national brand that we brought on. And we don't reveal the people we work with. It's something we never do. But it was a national brand that we started working with. And we were building out their social media strategy, and they were going through a rebrand. And we created this entire segment of what their media was going to look like over the next month. And when my team relayed it to me, and I just really loved the way it looked because it truly was through the way that we're talking about, the way we're thinking. And we created this brand this brand strategy plan that was so diverse and strategic. And I think it was that moment that I realized, like, wait a minute, we're going to hand this over to the company and they're going to do it. They're going to do it. They're actually going to take all these creations that we made and they're going to put it on their national platform. And I think that was the eye-opening experience for me that, why. And it's sometimes you have to figure out the why of what you're doing. It's very important. I can go down a whole rabbit hole another time about that, of understanding your why. But that was my why moment of, why am I involved in this? And I've been around social media for a very, very long time, but I never jumped in and really executed. But I was involved with from the very, very beginnings, and I didn't even realize I was involved. I kicked myself because I was with all of the major leaders in social media as the sort of the icons of social media. Like, I was with them. I was sitting next to them. And I didn't see it because, gosh darn it, man, I didn't see anybody that was like me that was in that space. And so I didn't go after it. I was still thinking, that's why I speak it so passionately. I was still thinking, well, no, I need to be in this world. I need to be over here and doing X, Y, Z. And I kicked myself because I was right there with all of them. And I'm not going to name drop, but I was right there with the guys that and the women that you probably know and hear about. I was right there sitting next to them when they were just kicking off the ground and just starting to get a voice in the social media world. But I was wondering, like, why was I involved in that? Why was I on Facebook when I should never have been on Facebook before, when it was the Facebook? Why was I on it? I was gathering this understanding of it. And so it took a while, and I'm okay with that, but it took a while for me to understand where in this world that I was beginning to fit. And it was that moment, one of our national-based clients, where I was saying, oh my goodness, they're gonna launch this, and they're listening to what we say. This is how it works. And I'm thinking to myself, imagine if we got to this higher level where we're able to work with these brands that are really influencing the way we look at things, people. Think about all the times in media, man. Like, the way we look at people and think about people, honestly, some people blame, the way people are brought up, and that's a big thing. I tell you, man, so much goes down to what we see, read, and listen to. That's what influences us. Seeing a commercial, man, don't take it lightly. Seeing a commercial influences our behavior and our thoughts. Okay, if you grow up and you never ever see in media, and that's why we get most of the stuff we see, TV, whatever it might be, and you grew up and you never saw someone of color driving a nice car or being at a university, if you never saw that, because the universities weren't marketing it, that's for sure, okay? There were people of color at universities, absolutely. I mean, there's some brilliant people that were at universities of color that were doing some amazing things, but those universities were not marketing that. So, and it wasn't on TV, and it sure as heck wasn't in the movies, okay? So if you grew up and you never ever saw that a day in your life, you're automatically gonna think, don't black people go to college? No women go to college. If all you saw, think about the origins of that people used to watch TV and only see women cooking in the kitchen. Then what else are you going to think? If that's what's bred into your head, you look up at TV, well, that's reality, right? That's reality. Reality is someone walking in your office and just saying, you're fired. That's not reality, man. That's terrible. That's disgusting. That's not how people should be treated. But guess what? People actually started doing that in boardrooms and in companies because they thought that's how I should act. Someone does something wrong, let me just yell out, you're fired, get out of here. That's terrible. But that's how powerful media is. Right? And the things we see, the messaging we see on TV or in the newspapers and how we read. It's something I got really interested in reading old newspapers. Like stuff you can't find, you gotta go to the library and stuff, right? And reading how the police blotter or the news report was spoken of. It is unbelievable. It's just as bad now in certain respects, but you wouldn't believe that you would read it and it really would say, there was a young Negro boy today that was walking to school and he was seen to be carrying something he should not have been carrying. I'm making it up, but that's what it would sound like. And so if you're reading it, you're just a young boy, a young man reading it, and you're looking at the way it said, a young Negro boy What's going on in your head? You can't even help that. Or you read, this individual was an immigrant from Honduras. An immigrant from Honduras? Why is that the starting line? Just tell me why. Just tell me. Do you hear? Oh, well, this individual was an immigrant from Germany. No. His parents were immigrants from Germany. Really? Never heard that before. My father was. I've never heard my father be referred to as an immigrant from Germany. Never, ever, ever have I heard anybody use that as the opening statement as how they are describing him. But guess what they love saying? Oh, he's a self-made man. Right? Think about that. But every time we talk about someone else, it leads off with, oh, their parents are, they're an immigrant from South America, or they're a black man, or we read Wikipedia pages today. Okay? Why does it always talk about the ethnic background of people of color? Or maybe they're Jewish? Why does it always lead with what their cultural breakdown is first? They talk about their parents. Oh, one parent's from Nigeria and one parent's from Lithuania. Really? Is that really the opening important statement to make? Because I don't see that happening in other markets and other individuals as they express that, well, the mother her family originated from England, and the other mother originated from Ireland. Never seen that. I just see it as the person's name. That's it, right? So those words are very powerful as how people begin learning how they're associating their thoughts about people. And so if there can be more equitable control of how messaging is going across, that's where an area that, guys, that I think we're missing the boat. We're missing the boat of where should we be really charging to find equal value and opportunity. That it's not just about put me up in charge. No, it's about helping everybody have a more diverse voice and outlook. It's kind of like people talk about Delbarton. It's like, yeah, let's make Delbarton a more diverse place. Well, guess what? I think the best thing for Delbarton is listen, if there's more boys of color at Delbarton, guess what? I don't think the boys of color are the ones winning. I think the boys of Caucasian backgrounds are winning more. And that's where it adds even more value to the education of Delbarton. That's more value. Because guess what? Everybody's getting educated more that way. Everybody's expanding their relationships, their understanding, their passions. They're creating best friends around them in a more diverse way. That benefit is even greater to the young Caucasian boy. So I know I went around a country road a little bit there, but it's, the media side has really struck a nerve and passion when I had that aha wake up moment there regarding how powerful messaging can be and how powerful you can be when you are controlling, or at least take that back. I don't like the word control, but you have a say in the narrative.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was an amazing talk. Thank you, Mr. Bienko. So, and thank you all for watching. As we wrap up, it's 9:03, and we're gonna have more festivities tomorrow and on Thursday. So stay tuned. As I said, the A Way for Equity telethon promotes the furthering of equitable living and closing the disparities between minority-owned businesses and non-minority-owned businesses. So just stay tuned for tomorrow. Everyone have a good night, and thank you very much. Thank you again, Mr. Bienko.
Yeah,
thanks everybody.
Everyone have a good night.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you and have a good evening.